Suffering to be shared by, receiving and enduring, the pain of another. Receive and endure are key words in effective consolation. One must be present to the suffering of another person with a tolerant attitude, avoiding making a judgment. Advice in suffering, no matter how much wisdom it contains, is not what the suffering person needs. The paradox of this is that the suffering of another opens a path to the comfort that is sought. The opposite is the clamp comfort that removes the effects of suffering and provides temporary comfort but neither lasting nor healthy. 627. The sufferer has to find his or her own answers as to the reason for the suffering, since no one else can provide them. It is the Lord who alone heals broken hearts and the only one who comforts. As we hear in today's responsorial psalm, the Lord heals broken hearts and binds up wounds. Consolation means living in the midst of suffering in the presence of God. Living in consolation means surpassing the earthly and entering into communion with the sacred. 3. Finally, Jesus gives guidance to those charged with caring for the sick and needy to care for themselves spiritually and physically. At dawn, while it was still very dark, Jesus got up, went out and went to a solitary place, where he began to pray. Don't let his prayer life disappear. Taking busyness to the extreme is a state of mind and a habit of the heart and not simply a result of tasks to be accomplished. Illusionary expectations, desires to feel important or secure, can lead to exaggerated activity. Jesus did not sink into feelings of guilt. They told him, "Everyone is looking for you." He told them, "Let's go." Jesus is the answer to the deep aspirations of human beings. So now, we must ask ourselves, how can we achieve a more intimate communion with God the Father in contemplative meditation so that we can help others hear words of salvation? Become a member of the channel and be an instrument of the Word of God. Don't miss this opportunity to impact lives. Click the link in the description now and help us spread the Word of God. Jonas by Paul. Andrew. Summary. Letting go of the cares and pleasures of this world gives us a perspective we must maintain on eternity. 3b. At a recent wedding I attended, the groom and groomsmen stood at the altar with great anticipation for the bride's arrival. A lady from Omaha present there said, "My 3-year-old niece, sitting next to me, was also anxiously waiting for the bride to arrive and suddenly, pointing at the 628 men standing there, she shouted, 'I wonder which of those gentlemen she is going to choose.'" The theme of our readings today tells us that everything in our lives is connected to Christ. 1. Just as it is in marriage. The second reading says that it is advisable for those who are married to live as if they were not, those who suffer, as if they did not suffer, those who are happy, as if they were not happy, those who buy, as if they did not buy, those who enjoy the world, as if they did not enjoy it, because this world we see is temporary. The meaning of the above is that Christians must live aware that this world has been transformed by the death and resurrection of Jesus and not be ruled or dominated by the deceptive demands that surround us. Letting go of the cares and pleasures of this world gives us a perspective we must maintain on eternity. There is a close relationship between addiction and emotional immaturity. Individuals who fall into addiction or pornography often do so because they feel unable to manage their feelings. This means developing emotional sobriety and, as St. Paul says, being connected to something spiritual. This world that we see is temporary, and this one too will pass. 2. Time must be seen as connected to God. St. Paul in our second reading says, "Life is short." Jonah in our first reading preaches in Nineveh within 40 days, and in the Gospel we read, "Immediately they left the nets." The word time does not come from chronos, as do hours and days, but of kairos, which means critical time. Kairos doesn't tell us what time it is. It tells us what the time we have is for. Our time on earth should be to serve the Lord, helping the oppressed, the lonely, the forgotten, and thus demonstrate our love for God. Jesus promises his followers a type of advanced fishing for the benefit and salvation of others. 3. Our behavior is called to a continuous connection with God. Can we learn from the example of the Ninevites? 629. Can we completely turn our lives around when we have been warned? We receive implicit and explicit warnings. Our own bodies give us advance warning of health problems, just as doctors warn us about habits that are harmful to the body. In human relationships we also receive implicit and explicit advance warnings. Jonah walked through the city for her to a guide. By Paul Andrew. Summary. Psalm 23. Fourth Sunday of Easter. Our responsorial psalm for this day, Psalm 23, is very personal. There are no references to we, our, or them, but only to my, me, I, and your. This is the testimony of King David, of his personal experience with God. In our Gospel we hear, I am the door.